I don't have access to the transcript of the original video. A transcript file wasn't readable in context, only the analysis files came through. So I'm working from the structural analysis, comment analysis, and thumbnail to write a fully original story. Here's the story. I still have the voicemail saved on my phone. I don't know why I keep it. Maybe because sometimes I need to hear it again just to remind myself that I didn't imagine any of it. My brother's voice, casual as someone reading off a grocery list. Hey, we're doing Dad's retirement dinner Saturday at Oleander. 7 o'clock. Oh, and don't bring the kids. It's not really a kid's thing. That was it. No, please. No, we'd love to have you. Just the time and the address and a closed door dressed up as a suggestion. I have two daughters. Piper is 7 and Ren, my younger one, just turned 5 in March. They call my father Grandpa Lou, and up until that Saturday, they thought he hung the moon. I should have listened to the voicemail and called back immediately. I should have said, my kids come with me or I don't come at all. I know that now. I knew it then, honestly. But there's this thing that happens when you've spent 32 years being the reasonable one, the flexible one, the one who doesn't make things harder than they need to be. You stop hearing the alarm bells. They just become background noise. So I texted back, we'll be there. My husband, Drew, looked at me sideways when I told him the plan. He said, no kids? He said it's not really a kid's thing. Drew was quiet for a second. He has this way of going quiet that means he has a lot to say and he's deciding whether to say it. He's been doing that our entire marriage. After 11 years, I can read the silence like a language. And you're okay with that, he said. Not a question exactly. It's Dad's retirement dinner. I don't want to cause drama. He nodded. That was all. But his jaw did the thing it does. I need to tell you about my family, so this makes sense. My parents divorced when I was 12. My brother Colt was 9. For the first few years, we did the split week shuffle. Mom's on Monday, Dad's on Thursday, everyone pretending it was normal. Then my mom got a job offer in Portland and took Colt with her. I stayed with my dad because I was in 8th grade and I didn't want to change schools, and at 12 you think those things matter more than they do. So it was just Dad and me for 6 years. I cooked. I kept the house. I reminded him about bills when he forgot, which was often. I learned how to unclog a drain and reset a circuit breaker and talk him down from the edge of whatever dark mood had settled in that week. I was 12, acting like I was 40, and I didn't know that wasn't normal because I had nothing to compare it to. Colt grew up in Portland with my mom, who is, to put it generously, more easygoing than my father. Colt got the softer version of childhood. He played lacrosse. He had a car at 16. He came back to visit our dad maybe twice a year, long enough to eat a good meal and be charming and then disappear again. When I was 19, my dad got sick, nothing life-threatening but serious enough that he needed help. I deferred my second year of college. I worked nights at a hotel front desk and came home to make sure he took his medication and went to his appointments. I did this for almost 2 years. Colt sent a card. By the time my dad was healthy again, I had transferred to a cheaper school, adjusted my plans, rebuilt. I don't say this looking for credit. I say it because it's the architecture of what came next. Colt moved back to town about 4 years ago. He got a job in finance, married a woman named Petra. She's fine. I have no strong feelings about Petra except that she has never once remembered my daughter's names correctly. Not in 4 years, and they have a son, Beckett, who is 6. Beckett is, according to my father, an exceptional child in every possible way. My daughters are apparently less exceptional. The retirement dinner was at Oleander. It's one of those restaurants with no prices on the website, which is a specific kind of restaurant I now recognize as a warning sign. The kind of place where the bread costs $11 and arrives with a tiny ramekin of butter described in 3 words on the menu, and the waiter explains each dish like he wrote it himself. We got a babysitter. Drew and I drove over together, and I remember thinking the parking lot looked expensive. Even the pavement seemed to cost something. Colt and Petra were already there with Beckett when we arrived. Beckett was sitting in a chair eating what appeared to be the complimentary bread and looking perfectly content. I blinked. I thought it wasn't a kid's thing, I said to Colt. He shrugged, reaching for his water glass. Beckett's easy. He just sits there. My kids also just sit there. Yeah, but Dad thought it would be. He made a vague gesture. You know. I didn't know. But my dad was already standing up to hug me, and the moment passed, and I let it pass because I had spent 32 years letting things pass, and it was basically a reflex at that point. We sat down. My father was at the head of the table. Colt and Petra on one side with Beckett, Drew and me on the other. Petra's parents. I don't really know them. They visit once a year. We're at the end. Beckett had the bread in his tablet in a little case. He was perfectly settled. I excused myself to the bathroom and stood there for a second in front of the mirror. My daughters were at home with a sitter, $18 an hour, and I'd driven 40 minutes to sit across from my nephew, who was apparently the acceptable kind of child to bring to a restaurant. I fixed my lipstick and went back to the table. The menu at Oleander is written in that font that's trying very hard to look effortless. Small plates, shared concept. The server recommends 4 to 6 per couple. I looked at the prices. There's a pasta dish, handmade, with truffles and something described as aged mountain cheese, for $68. There's a branzino for $74. There's a Wagyu beef something for $91. Drew looked at me. I looked at him. We ordered conservatively, deliberately. I got a salad and a smaller pasta. Drew got soup and the chicken, which was the least alarming thing on the menu at $42. My father ordered the Wagyu. Colt ordered the branzino and the truffle pasta. Petra got the branzino as well. Petra's parents ordered without looking at prices, which is either the sign of wealth or a very optimistic relationship with their credit card. Nobody said anything about the bill. Nobody said anything about anything financial. There was an unspoken assumption in the air, and I had been breathing my family's unspoken assumptions my whole life, so I recognized it immediately. They expected me to pay. Not all of it, maybe, but most of it, or at least a large, significant portion that nobody would mention explicitly because that would require acknowledging it out loud. And if you acknowledge it out loud, you have to justify it, and nobody wanted to have that conversation. It was easier to just let it happen and then thank me warmly afterward and go home. I know this because it had happened before. My dad's birthday 2 years ago, Italian place, I paid. Colt's promotion dinner, I paid. A graduation lunch for Beckett's preschool that I still cannot believe we celebrated with a sit-down meal, I paid. Every time the bill just arrived near me. Every time I handled it. Every time someone said you didn't have to do that in the tone of someone who absolutely believed you did. I picked up my water glass and didn't say anything. The meal went on the way these things do. My dad talked about retirement, what he planned to do with the time, a fishing trip Colt had apparently already offered to plan. Petra talked about Beckett's soccer league. Beckett ate his bread and watched something on the tablet with the volume low. About halfway through the main course, Petra leaned across the table and asked if the truffle pasta was shareable. The server confirmed it was. "We should get one for the table," she said. My dad nodded. "Get two." He said it like he was buying rounds at a bar. Easy, expansive, the version of my father that exists when he knows someone else is handling the logistics. 2 orders of truffle pasta arrived. They were $68 each. Colt served himself and Petra and Beckett. Petra's parents took some. My dad took a generous portion. The dish passed near Drew. He looked at me. I shook my head slightly. He passed it along. Nobody noticed, or if they noticed, they didn't say anything. The server came around at the end of the meal and asked if anyone had room for dessert. Colt said yes immediately. He ordered a chocolate thing and something with lavender cream that Petra wanted to try. Beckett got a scoop of ice cream. It was presented on a little slate board. The ice cream was $14. My father patted his stomach contentedly. I sat very still. The check was going to be several $100s. I had done the rough math during the truffle pasta. We were likely looking at somewhere between $600 and $800 for the table before tip, and the tip at Oleander probably ran 22% because the server had been exceptional, and I am the kind of person who tips correctly even when my blood pressure is doing what mine was doing at that moment. The server set the check holder in the center of the table. Everyone looked at their dessert. I reached out and picked it up. This was the moment. The moment I had done in a version of this exact scenario, more times than I can count. Pick it up, absorb it, let the dinner continue, drive home, wake up at 3 a.m. thinking about it. I opened it. I did the math one more time. And then I put it back down. I'm going to ask for separate checks, I said. The table went quiet in that particular way. That means everyone heard and nobody is ready to respond. My dad looked at me. What? I'd like to pay for what Drew and I ordered, separately. Colt set his fork down. It's Dad's retirement dinner. I know. Congratulations, Dad, I mean that. I looked at my father directly. But I'm not paying for the whole table tonight. Petra made a small sound. It wasn't quite a word. I drove 40 minutes, I said, and my voice was very calm, which surprised me. I paid for a babysitter because I was told this wasn't a kids' event, and then I got here, and Beckett was at the table, which is fine. I've no problem with Beckett, but I need you to understand that I've been handling bills like this for years, and tonight, I'm not doing it. The silence was different now, more textured. My dad started to say something about not making a scene. I'm not making a scene, I said. I'm asking for a separate check. That's not a scene, that's math. Drew had his hand on the table near mine, not touching, just near. I caught the server's eye and asked quietly for our portion of the bill to be separated out. He was professional and calm about it, which I appreciated more than I can say. Our portion came to $127 before tip. I paid $157 with tip and I put my card back in my wallet. The rest of the table sorted out the remaining several $100s in a way I did not observe because I was looking at the small print on the dessert menu and breathing steadily. My father didn't say anything on the way out. Colt held the door for Petra and didn't look at me. Petra's parents said goodnight pleasantly, probably unaware of what had just happened or choosing not to be aware, which I respected. In the car, Drew started the engine and didn't say anything for about 2 miles. Then he said, "You okay?" "Yeah." "You did good." I looked out the window. The city lights were doing that thing they do when you're tired and a little wrung out, where they blur slightly at the edges. I should have done it years ago, I said. He didn't disagree. 3 days later, my dad called. He didn't mention the dinner directly. He talked about the fishing trip Colt was planning, some logistics about dates. Then at the end, he said, "I just want you to know I was a little surprised the other night." "I know," I said. "It's a hard time for me retiring. It's an adjustment. I understand that, Dad. I really do." Pause. "It just would have been nice if, Dad." "I really do." Pause. "It just would have been nice if, Dad." I kept my voice even. "I love you. I am proud of you for 30 years of work. I will celebrate that with you any time you want. But I'm not going to keep paying for dinners where I'm told not to bring my kids while everyone else brings theirs. That's not something I'm going to do anymore." He was quiet. "That's all I have to say about it," I said. "I don't want to fight. I just needed you to hear that." We talked for a few more minutes about nothing in particular. When I hung up, I sat in my car in my own driveway for a little while. Piper knocked on the car window from outside. She was in her socks on the front porch, which she knows she's not supposed to do. I opened the door. "What are you doing in the car?" she said. "Just thinking." "About what?" I looked at her. Her hair was messy from whatever game she'd been playing. She had a marker stain on her left hand. "Come here," I said. She climbed into the passenger seat like it was the most normal thing in the world and sat there with me, looking out the windshield at the garage door. "Can we get pizza tonight?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "We can get pizza." Colt texted me a week later. Not about the dinner. About something else entirely. Something with my dad's car insurance that he needed help navigating. He sent me the documents and asked if I could call the company and sort it out because he was slammed at work. I stared at the text for a long time. Then I typed back, "Hey, I have a full week too? You should be able to handle this one. Call the number on the declaration page and they'll walk you through it. You've got this." I put my phone down. I picked it up again about 40 minutes later and looked at my messages, half expecting some kind of fallout. He had sent back, "Okay." Just that. Lowercase. No punctuation. I put my phone back down and went to watch Ren's soccer practice, which was happening in a public park on a Tuesday evening. She is 5 and has absolutely no concept of the rules of soccer and runs in the wrong direction approximately 40% of the time, and I have never loved watching anything more in my entire life. Things with my dad are not fixed. I want to be honest about that. We talk, but there's a new space between us. Not hostile, just honest, like we've both stopped pretending a little bit. I don't know yet if that's the beginning of something better or just the beginning of something different. What I do know is this: the babysitter that night cost me $108, the dinner cost me $157, and for the first time in years, I drove home from a family event without that specific dull ache that lives right behind your sternum when you've given more than you should have to people who don't notice. That's not nothing. My daughters don't know any of this happened. They went to bed that night having eaten chicken nuggets and watched half a movie and argued about who got to hold the remote. Normal, ordinary, unremarkable things. I stood in the doorway of their room after and listened to them breathe in the dark. You don't have to announce it when you finally decide you're worth more than what someone's been offering you. You don't have to make a speech or send a letter or cause a scene in a fancy restaurant. Sometimes you just ask for a separate check. And sometimes that's enough. I've been thinking about cause and effect a lot lately, not in any grand philosophical way, just in the plain practical sense of things happen because other things happened first. My dad didn't wake up one morning and decide to treat me like a wallet. That took years. And I didn't walk into Oleander and suddenly find the nerve to ask for a separate check out of nowhere either. That took years too. The thing about being the responsible one in a family is that nobody ever officially assigns you the role. It just accumulates. One dinner here, one crisis there, one phone call you handled because nobody else was going to. And then, one day you look up and realize the role has calcified around you and everyone has adjusted their expectations accordingly, and the adjustment happened so gradually that even you didn't notice until the check landed on the table for the 400th time. I used to think endurance was the same thing as strength. I was wrong about that. Endurance without discernment is just damage wearing a patient face. Real strength, the kind that's actually worth something, is knowing the difference between a situation that deserves your sacrifice and one that simply learned to expect it. My daughters are 7 and 5. They are watching me all the time, even when I don't know they're watching. Piper notices everything. She noticed when I came home from the dinner quieter than usual. She didn't say anything, she just climbed into my lap for longer than normal before bed. Kids understand the emotional temperature of a room long before they have language for it. What I want them to understand someday, when they're old enough to need this: the people who love you will not require you to shrink. They won't hand your kids napkins while boxing $68 pasta for someone else's children. They won't make you feel like your presence at the table is conditional on your usefulness. And when you finally stop absorbing the cost of other people's comfort, the people who only valued that function will make their feelings known, and that information, as painful as it is worth having. Colt's one-word text, "Okay," told me more than any conversation we'd had in years. The absence of pushback, the absence of real response, the lowercase okay that meant he'd already moved on to finding another solution. I wasn't irreplaceable to him. I was just convenient, and knowing that, clearly, without the fog of obligation clouding it, that was its own kind of relief. I'm not at peace with everything yet. My relationship with my dad is in a tender, unresolved place, and I don't know what it becomes from here. But I know that I stood in the parking lot of that restaurant and felt lighter than I had in years, and that feeling was real, and it came directly from the decision I made at the table. You reap what you allow to continue, and you plant something new the moment you stop. That night I ordered pizza with my girls. Wren got sauce on her shirt within approximately 90 seconds. Piper tried to negotiate for extra cheese in the most elaborate, lawyerly argument I have ever witnessed from a 7-year-old. Drew ate 4 slices and fell asleep on the couch before 9 p.m. It was the best dinner I'd had in years.